Howdy folks, welcome back to Horror on Tap. We've got our second Friday the 13th of the year coming up this week, so I figured I should probably take all my Jasons, put them in order from my worst to my best, and put them out there for you. Now, these are just going to be the official iterations of Jason in film. It will not be anything from a novelization, it won't be anything from a fan film, so no Ghost Jason, sorry Vinny. So, we're just going to jump right into it. Again, these are going to be my personal opinions. It's going to be worst to best. Now, in my opinion, pretty much all Jasons are good-ish. But we're just going to go through them one by one. Let's take a look. So coming in at the worst of the worst, number 14, we've got Part 5, A New Beginning. Now, of course, this Jason is not Jason at all. Of course, this is the paramedic Rory Burns. So this Jason, if you want to call him that, is literally a copycat. If you look at the mask right here, you look at his face, he looks like a cross-eyed cat. Now, other than, the fact that he can't, he has no abilities, he has no powers, he's not invincible. But you see he's got a giant gash on his arm, and he's just kind of like, oh, well, whatever, I'll keep going. I mean, that's damn near down to the bone. I figured he'd be running away by now. So you got to give him props for being a tough son of a bitch. The mask itself, I really don't even mind. I kind of like the fact that they went with a blue, the chevrons there. Change it up a little bit. That way, you kind of know it's not really Jason. And then, later in the film, you do get a flash of what's supposed to be the real Jason. Of course, that's just a dream sequence and all that, so I didn't include that in the list. So, yeah, worst, gonna be number 14. It's Roy. Moving on to the coveted number 13, Freddy vs. Jason. Now, this Jason, there's a lot about him I just didn't like. He just seemed awkward. He seemed a little slow. If you look at his face here, the way the mask fits, and he just looks like he has a lazy eye. It doesn't look like he has any kind of deformity that Jason clearly had. And, we've seen him without his mask plenty of times. But also the way the mask fit his face, it seemed like it stuck out. Like up at the top, there was a gap between his forehead and the mask that you could probably fit, your balled up fist through. It just looked awkward and gaudy, and, no offense to Ken Kersinger. He did an okay job, but overall, I just did not like this Jason. I really wish they would have kept Kane Hodder playing him, and then really just went with something a little more linear as far as, movie to movie, make the mask and the look seem a little more like what we've seen in the past, but they went with something completely different, and it just didn't work great for me. So that's going to be the coveted number 13 right there. Moving on to number 12. The original Friday the 13th. We've got young Jason. He comes out of the lake. Of course, this image here is just from a flashback scene. It's not where we actually see Jason at the very end, coming out of the lake all, covered in weeds and seaweed and dirt and debris and whatever else. But this Jason, we only get a couple glimpses of him, and, he's only in the movie, for a few brief seconds, and that's about it. The Jason itself, Ari Lehman did a great job doing what he had to do, but, we didn't really get much of the Jason, and he doesn't really do much in this movie, so that's number 12. Moving on to number 11. Uber Jason from Jason X. This version here, obviously completely different from what we were, classically accustomed to, especially after 10 movies, 9 with adult Jason, 8 with the hockey mask. The upgraded Uber Jason, the mask looks tiny on his face. His head looks like it's just made out of brain matter. It doesn't even look like there's much there. Obviously Kane Hodder played the character and played it well, but the character, or this iteration of Jason, it just didn't fly with me great. I kind of liked the earlier part of Jason, where you get him in the beginning, but we'll get there here shortly. Let's move on. Number 10, part 6, Jason Lives. This Jason, he was a little goofy in ways. Kind of his mannerisms, the way he moved, the way he looked was pretty decent. I don't mind the look here. It kind of, it really seemed like it was that young Jason brought up, as an adult. Like he's got the hardware on his belt, he's got the throwing knives and everything else. He's got gloves, he seems like an adult Boy Scout. Like he really paid attention when he was a kid. So overall, I didn't mind this Jason. They did keep some continuity. They got the axe mark in the head. The mask actually doesn't look too bad. It seems a little small for the head overall, but not a bad Jason. 10 out of 14, that ain't too bad. Moving on, number 9. Baghead Jason from part 2. I kind of like this Jason. Now, obviously, this was kind of a nod or an ode or just a complete ripoff of the killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown. That's a movie I haven't seen in a while, man. But, having the one hole in the eye rather than the 2 eye holes in the bag. It worked, and I kind of like how they did that with the one eye hole, because if you look at Jason without the mask, the right eye is usually pretty jacked up, or at least kind of off center. Or, there's something wrong with it for sure. But the Baghead Jason, I didn't mind at all. I kind of wish we would have gotten more, or maybe another movie with that mask. Obviously, they moved on in part 3, but I kind of like this Jason. So moving on to number 8. So we've got the Jason from Jason X. This is pre-Uber. I liked the look of this Jason quite a lot, and I know a lot of people, might challenge me on that. I think a lot of people didn't like the look. One thing, it seemed like it was pretty much just, Kane Hodder with a mask on. Like you can see his ears, that they're just like his normal ears. Like they didn't put any kind of messed up hood on him to make him look old and deformed and been through all the shit he's been through, especially after some of the more recent movies before this one. It's kind of like they just kind of started with almost a fresh Jason in a way. What wasn't terribly battle beaten and things like that. But I really like the look. I like the mask. There's something about it. It's a little weird. It's a little different, but I do like that mask, and I kind of wish they would have just kept that and kept going with it, but to each his own. Next, Reboot Jason from Friday the 13th, 2009. Now this Jason here, they kind of made him more of a more realistic version of Jason. He was kind of that, more like an outdoorsman in a way. Just had clothes that he could scrounge up, and I'm sure it was hard for a guy of his size to find clothes that fit, because he was a pretty big son of a bitch. The mask itself didn't quite fit. I think that was one of my issues with it. It seemed like either the mask was too small, or the head, the hood that Derek Mears was wearing may have been a little too big or a little too thick, because it just seems like the mask didn't quite fit the face. But Jason himself, I love that he was, he was athletic, he was big. I don't mind a real big Jason, as opposed to like a real big Michael. I don't like my Michael to be gigantic. I want him to be a little more human. But Jason, I don't mind him being a real big guy. And Derek Mears, of course, he's he's a stunt guy and everything else, so he did a real good job at doing everything he needed to do. He was very agile, but also big, strong, intimidating, menacing. So I like this Jason quite a bit. It's kind of a bummer we never got a sequel to that. So, but speaking of, we'll move on to number 6, where we have the Baghead Jason from the 2009 reboot. Now this, I guess I'll just call him Baghead, even though I think this mask was more like a rap, like WRAP, not like. But the way they did it, it looked more like it was wrapped around his head, not just like a sack pulled over his head. I really liked the look. I could have gone with a whole movie with just this Jason. I kind of wish they would have done that, but then of course we never did get a sequel. So if they did one with just Baghead Jason, and then we never got the sequel with the hockey mask, people probably would have been a little pissed. So I see why they did what they did. But yeah, I could have gone a whole Baghead reboot movie. So yeah, I like that one. And we're moving up into the top 5. So let's move to 5. We've got part 3 Jason here. This is where you first get the hockey mask. Pretty good look. This Jason was also pretty big. But still pretty agile. And I like the mask. It's, it's clean. It's brand new. He gets it off of Shelley there. Slits his throat, takes the mask. You don't see that happen, of course, but we know what happened. Yeah, this Jason, this is the introduction to the classic Jason. Without this Jason, we probably never would have gotten the hockey mask Jason. So it's a good thing that somebody had a hockey mask sitting in their car when they made this film. So that's number 5. Moving on, number 4. Number 4 is part 4, the final chapter Jason. This one I really liked. He had a good look to him, he had good mannerisms, moved around well. The mask looked great. It had the split from the axe and then all the blood and everything from it. It looked, it's missing some of the chevrons and stuff, so it's probably a little more worn than it probably should have been, but overall the continuity wasn't bad at all between parts 3 and part 4. They've got a little more of the wear and everything on his head and his clothes and everything. So, yeah, good Jason. I keep hearing noises all around me. I don't know what the hell's going on. I think it's just the sun's out. Things are expanding and creaking and cracking. So, but all of a sudden I just hear I'm like, what the fuck was that? Anyway, moving on to the top 3 now. Number 3. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this one, but here we go anyway. Oh, you know what? There's a bug in here. That's what I'm hearing. Oh, yeah, look, looks like a wasp. Time out. Pause. So now we're moving into my top 3, but before we do, and I almost forgot to do this, let's take a look at what I'm drinking. Today I've got a really good one. Today I've got Three's Company, Four's Legendary. Now this is a collaboration with Other Side Brewing, and it's brewed with Tripping Animals, Ology, and No Seasons, other breweries that they have collaborated with. This is a hazy Imperial IPA, 8% ABV, comes in a 4-pack of pint cans. So pick yourself up some Other Side beer. They do some amazing stuff. So make sure you are doing that. And I'm still waiting for it to settle a little bit. So we'll be drinking here in a minute. All right, let's move into our top 3. Now, I know if you've been paying attention, you know what's left. So I know I'm probably going to get a little shit for this one. But coming in at number 3, Jason Goes to Hell. I really like this Jason. Now, we didn't get much of him at all in the movie, of course. You got a little bit of him at the beginning and a little bit at the end. If they would have just made the whole movie with this Jason, I think it would have been a far superior movie. Now, there isn't a lot about this Jason that is, that really stands out other than the fact that, the wear on his mask is great. It's all chipped away and, beat to hell, scratched up. His skin is all boiled and, rotted and everything. Whatever he's wearing, it looks kind of like, similar to what Michael Myers wears, just he's got the collar down and he's got a belt on it, but it looks like a jumpsuit like that. Just kind of beat to shit, but I really like the looks of this Jason, and of course Kane Hodder playing him. And he always does a great job. You know, he's never a not good Jason. So I really wish we would have gotten more of this Jason. Or even if they had another movie that kind of replicated that look. Now, of course, at the end of this movie, he goes to hell, so that's supposed to be the end of him. But I really like this Jason. I don't care if you did or didn't. Go to hell with Jason. Alright, number 2. Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, this was Kane Hodder's first foray playing Jason. And of course, does a great job. This is where you start getting those Jason mannerisms. And what he's wearing here actually looks a lot like what he was wearing in Jason X. I think it was probably meant to be essentially the same thing. Because it's just, you know, it's the same Jason, just a little bit later. So I think that's, you know, there is a little bit of continuity there. The mask, of course, looks very similar to what we've seen in the last few films, minus a lot of damage. There's a lot of damage that was missing from this one. But the mask looks great. I mean, this is essentially what I think of when I think of Jason Voorhees, is that mask right there. Now, honestly, I mean, we do have one more to go. So we'll just hop into number 1. The creme de la creme, in my opinion, of course, keep that in mind, this is just my opinion, is Part 7, The New Blood. Now, this is the Jason I really think of when I think of Jason. Now, of course, like I just said, Part 8 looks a lot like it's this Jason just a little bit later, other than the fact that, like, his mask has regenerated some pieces and he's not all beat to hell like he should have been. But, you know, other than, you know, the continuity issues and things like that, you know, no big deal. But this Jason here, when I think of Jason Voorhees, this is the quintessential look. The look, the mannerisms, everything, the viciousness, all of it. I like the mask being, you know, a little beat up. I wish we would have gotten a little more of a setup for that, like what caused that to happen. I mean, maybe it was when he was at the bottom of the lake, you know, fishes were nibbling on it or whatever, or just, you know, started to rot away. Whatever the case may be. But this is what I think of when I think Jason Voorhees. This is, I think, the best look. The mask is on point. I like just the single chevron in the middle. The wear and the tear, you can see his bones and shit sticking out. Looks great. I love the look. I love how vicious he is. I also love the fact that this image right here is the same image that they used on the cover of the original NES Friday the 13th game. And that, I mean, that's a throwback to my childhood. That game scared the ever-loving shit out of me. Every time you'd finally go into a cabin and you'd find Jason, and that music, you know, kicks on, and whatever. Scared the hell out of me as a kid, but I loved it. So, this is my number 1 Jason. Part 7, The New Blood. So there you have it. That is my ranking of all the Jasons, all the official Jasons. Now, I also didn't include Mrs. Voorhees, because she's not Jason. Now, I did include Roy because we thought it was Jason, or at least some of us did. I think most of us knew. You know, you get that up-close shot of Roy, and he's, you know, looking down, and he looks up, and you know what's happening. So anyway, he looked like Jason, he felt like Jason, he did Jason shit. So that's why I included Roy, but not Mrs. Voorhees. I almost said Mrs. Myers. I gotta keep my movies straight. I know what they are. Shut up. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me for today. So be sure to tune in next time to find out what's on tap.